Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
And my great pleasure to welcome to the program now, Kapiti Coast Councillor James Cootes. James, good morning and welcome to you.
G'day, John. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm bearing up under the strain, but I think you've been doing a bit more work than I have recently, and I've been working quite hard because we're into level 3, and you're a business person. You must be talking to business people. What is happening out there in the shops, the small and medium enterprises around our area, James?
Yeah, good question, John. As you probably know, I'm also involved with our all-chair Elevate Otaki.
Yes.
And what we've done as part of a response through this is we've got a database of businesses in Otaki and Tohoro. And what we've done is personally called people that are on that database and just checking in, how you're doing, and with no real sort of leading questions. The intention has just been simply to call and see how people are doing, and if people wanted to talk about, what they're preparing for in their business or how things are personally, it's entirely up to them. So, a range of responses out there. It's different for different industries. For some, they just cannot open it all into level 2. For others, they possibly can open at level 3 and are just looking at how they can do that. And different people, different circumstances, and I think probably a different viewpoint as well. So I know some, for example, that think they could open under level 3, but just simply don't want to, for various reasons as well. So, lots happening out there. Certainly, people are being innovative. I think the word is currently around, how they do things, and those that have had an online presence, like our own business, it's been not quite such a rush, and those that haven't, there's been a bit of a flurry for people to get their businesses online and on social media as well.
Have you been able to keep your people on, your employees?
Yeah, look, every single one of our employees is still employed by us. We've, I don't know if you've been in our store recently or sort of know any of our staff, but we've got, some long-termers that have been with us for a long time. And we, sort of value our staff, though, the key asset within our business. And again, we made the call to stay shut. We supply a product to supermarkets, so we could have technically stayed open under level 3. So I should clarify, when I say open, we could have continued operating as a business.
Sure.
But we felt, it's funny, it's been the first time in our entire working career that we've actually had 4 weeks off. Being a, self-employed business owner, it's not often, you can have sort of, having 2, maybe 3 weeks, but, and also for our staff as well. So we thought we'd just take the opportunity to take a good break, enjoy the 3 to 4 weeks. We did get clearance late, I think it was Monday last week, from MB and MPI to go back in again. Again, for me as a councillor, it's important that I dot my I's and cross my T's. So it's been probably one of the more frustrating things amongst all this is the ambiguous sort of responses from the government, from the different government departments. And for listeners, I want them to take that wrong. I know that it's incredibly trying times for, even government employees and the different departments there and the ministers and so forth, but just getting clarity around what you can and can't do. And so forth has been, challenging not only for myself and our business, but also, other businesses. But yeah, all of our staff, we've kept in touch with them via Zoom. There's a bit of a fine line there. We didn't want to be on their cases every day. We, deliberately wanted them just to relax and enjoy time with their friends and family. That's in their bubble. But yeah, towards the end of level 4, we engaged with them via Zoom. And we worked out sort of a skeleton roster so that we don't have everyone in the building at the same time, and other protocols as well. So, our staff are in pretty good spirits, but it was interesting, keen to get back into work.
Well, that's wonderful. And you've had your lovely staycation. But the conversations I've had with business owners is their main worry was about the staff, because let's face it, wage costs are a very major component of business these days, and that is the one that was causing the most issue. And of course, the government has come to the party for many businesses, and to the extent of about $10 billion, which is an extraordinary amount of money. But the business owners that I talked to were worried about looking after their staff, which is something that some cynical people may not associate with business owners.
Yeah, it's a good question, John, and it's funny, a lot of people will, there's often commentary out there that business owners just make lots of money and it's all in it for themselves. And, I know that there are business owners at both ends of the spectrum, ones that just are absolutely tremendous to their staff and ones that just treat them absolutely abhorrently, and certainly don't agree with that myself. But, our focus, if I could share a personal example, we've, not even just through this coronavirus scenario, but in past times, we've paid our staff before we've paid ourselves. Yes. We've had some tough times in the 20 years we've been in business. The GFC was pretty hard. We went into debt, severely into debt through that, putting our staff first. And probably some would say that we're unwise in doing that and might be right. But, through this, and it isn't a criticism of my staff, it's just simply how it was. But, again, we paid our staff first. Ironically, it's interesting, and again, I'm being probably a little bit personal here, but, I've never done my council job for the money. I've said that, for the whole time, the 13 years that I've done it, for many years I never claimed expenses or anything. I just... paid that out of our own pocket, and and those that know me and know the business would say that it's contributed lots to the community in terms of, we've done food for things and not charged for it. And where I'm going with that is, for much of my career as an elected member, the business has sort of propped up my ability to be able to do that job. Yep. And ironically here, for once, my council wage is actually, we've used that to top up some of our staff's wages so that they're still paid the 80%. So, so it's quite funny, here I've been able to use it, to support my staff as well, because for ourselves, we've got enough to kind of go by, and owning a food business, food is, our business has quite a bit of food in it at the moment, so our trips to the supermarket haven't been quite as frequent as maybe others have been.
Right. So there it is. You were looking after your staff, as I think many employers have been trying to do. So we're heading into a lessening of the business restrictions, one would hope. And do you think that we have got a long, hard row ahead of us, James?
Yeah, look, just coming back to the staff one, we are looking after our staff, but the biggest challenge for any business is to stay viable. And, we're, potentially looking at a reduced turnover moving forward, like other businesses may be. Ours is particularly more affected being in the hospitality industry, where people, a big part of our business is actually socialising. Yeah. And that's a big negative for the whole social distancing. So if we typically operate under a model where we get, I'm just going to make figures up for argument's sake, but 200 people through to the door to make $2,000, and that's reduced to 100 people and only $1,000, or even if you manage to do 1,200, that's if your fixed costs are still the same, then you're in trouble. So why I was going back to the staff is the challenges moving forward. We've looked after them at the moment, but as a business person, sometimes you've got to make those hard decisions, and it may be there are some costs that you can't trim. Rent's one of the bigger challenges, and we could come back to that later. But the other is obviously wages. So as much as we love and care about our staff, sometimes it may come to, when we haven't made that call yet, but where you might need to let one or two of them go in order to keep the rest of them, rather than the whole ship sort of going under. So it'll be interesting times. It just depends on how quickly people rebound back to actually making purchases. But then it comes to your sort of wider question around the economy in general, and whether people will hold on to their pennies, the few that they have, or whether they'll go out there and actually spend and support local businesses. Sure.
And I think there must be a real imperative to support local businesses. You mentioned Otaki before. That's got a pot of money. coming from, as a consequence of the roading changes. Do you intend to use that money to support local businesses?
Yeah, look, it's always been the intention, but I just put a caveat there. What we've said as a team is it's not just about business. We don't want to be single-minded that it's elevating Otaki, and there's, some opportunities coming up. Employment is another good example, which is kind of related to business. But to come back to, I guess, your first question around assisting businesses, what we've said as a team, because we have been meeting via Zoom, it's important that we are mindful or careful around where we do spend money. And for example, we talked about helping people getting digitally enabled and doing maybe some webinars and workshops on websites and social media. As a result of the COVID-19, and that we've been working with myself and Councillor Buswell and the economic development team. We've been working with the Chamber and Kita and Manaki. So basically a lot of the ED heads across Kapiti, those that have an interest in that sort of sector. And what's come out of that is making sure we're not duplicating things. So the last thing we wanted to do was go and pay someone and fund them to do a webinar on building a website in a day, only to find out that, 2 or 3 days later, the Chamber's paying for exactly the same thing.
Sure.
So, there has been some things like that we've looked at directly doing, and in those instances, we've managed to see them done through either Wellington NZ or the council or the Chamber have done it just off their own bat. So we're still working on some things ourselves, but it kind of go back to the point that we don't want to be doubling up on what other people are doing in the area.
Fascinating times. Great to hear you still seem to be in very fine fettle. Lovely to catch up with you. It's been some time, and you're welcome anytime here on Beach FM. Thank you very much for joining us, James Cootes.
Thanks very much, John.
106.3 Beach FM.